Here I wanted to demonstrate just how useful coPilot can be in new development efforts, no matter your experience level. I will admit at first I just used it for smaller tasks, but then I started expanding to larger tasks. So this will be my attempt in creating an autocomplete address search. As you'll see here, I'll ask it similar things like, let's create the control and some things to consider. For example, let's only untrigger after the third character and log the results and things like that. So let's get started. In preparation for this, I have kind of jotted down what I was going to ask coPilot. Can you create an autocomplete address control using OpenStreetMap API search? Please consider race conditions and improve the user experience with maybe a delay. Let's only trigger if 3 or more characters are entered. Let's also log to the console what the user entered and the return results. So let's give this a try. So here's just stating back the requirements. So you'll see here, let's see if they created the HTML page. They did. Here's the actual, okay, let's see what they did here. Let's see, they actually created a control. They Okay, so what we see here, is it's obviously created a control on the form in the HTML called address control. The value is saved to value changes, and then we pipe it to RxJS function. You'll see here there's a debounce time of 400, so that just basically means it will hesitate. So you'll see here, it's repeated back to me what the requirements were. Only triggers on 3 or more characters. The bounce is input to avoid race conditions. That's just a delay before it makes the next request. So the screen doesn't appear to flicker as much. I've used this in the past. Logs the user input and API results to the console. Perfect. Displays suggestions in the dropdown. Okay, so what did it do? So here we go. It's obviously created a control. Here's the value as it changes. It's being piped via the RxJS. So there's debounce, 400 milliseconds. It only triggers upon distinct until value changed. We'll talk about that more in a second. Here's the filter. So we only trigger the calls after the third character. It uses switchMap RxJS. Again, what this does is it actually cancels a prior request. So if you were to type really fast, say Tom's River, TOMS, it won't make those calls because it's debounce. But if it did make it, if you type TOMS, it would trigger each of those calls, but they may not come back in the order that you're expecting. So what this will do is if the T request isn't returned by the time TO is sent, then it will cancel the T request, if that makes sense. We'll try to duplicate that as we test this if it works, of course. And of course, on the subscribe, I thought it was going to use tap, actually. This is something to consider, but instead, upon the subscribe, it just logs the request. Okay, so let's go ahead and apply this. So we're on our HTML. Here we go. That should automatically have refreshed. Yes, it did. Okay, so now we have, this is all from the test application that I created. I'll share how I created a project later in the demo. So let's just type an address. I mentioned earlier Toms River, New Jersey, so let's try that. Okay, so you'll see Toms River, New Jersey. And as you can see, oh, actually, you know what? It's not this one. Oh, user types Toms River. Perfect. So, but that's not on every key press, is it? See how, so on the third, it should trigger it. So it did say Tom, but what river? So I wanted it to tell me I typed every single character, even though if it made a request or not. So let's make a change. Please use tab. Sorry, I didn't even, you know what? I don't even want to assume that that's what I want to use. I'm just going to ask coPilot to, so what was it doing? User typed. For user typed values, please do on every character, not just on results. Okay, so that's what I thought, is trying to use tap. So rather than cut and paste the whole thing over, I'm just going to drop that in. Okay, so again, I'll type T. There's T, O. Now M should return results. User type Tom. Now why did it respond twice? Let's do S. Oh, you know what? It left the other one in there. So here, we don't need this anymore, do we? Okay, let's try again. T-O-O-M, still not. So on the third, it returned the results. But now I'm going to try this again. Actually, I'm just going to refresh the screen so it's easier to see. So I'm going to do it really quick this time. T-O-M-S. Oh, sorry, lost focus. T-O-M-S river. So I had a little bit of a delay there, so you'll notice it called it twice. Let me change this from 400. Let's call it 1,000. Let's make it a second. This will make it easier to demonstrate. So we'll do TOMSRIVER. So it should go now. Perfect. So if I